And what was it like seeing family? Did it instantly lift your spirits?
It was and I said it, I go, it's like a hole in my heart closed.
Yeah.
This weight, it's as if you're carrying around just a big old weight on your shoulders. And I was gone.
It's the Germany Experience. I'm Sean, your host, and this is the podcast about life in Germany as seen through the eyes of outsiders. Go to the website, thegermanyexperience.de for more information on the show. And you can get in touch with me, thegermanyexperience.de/contact. You can get in touch with me, and you can also leave me a voicemail. There's a little voicemail button that pops up. So definitely get in touch with me. And usually I do this little monologue before I talk to the guest, but my guest is already sitting right here with me in the call. How are you doing, Beth?
Hi, Sean.
Hello.
I'm doing much better than I was about a month ago. So
yeah, you do, and that's what we're going to talk to you about, Beth. And how's the jet lag? Because you have just gotten back from the United States of America. So how is your jet lag doing?
I'm recovering from jet lag worse than I'm recovering from my vaccine.
So much to talk about. So we're going to be discussing what it feels like to be so far from family and what it's like to make the trip home, because Beth made the trip home. So we're going to be talking to her a bit about her experiences with that. Plus, we're also asking the big question, and I asked it on on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. Has the current situation in Germany made you consider returning to your home country? We'll be listening to some audio clips from some other foreigners, and we'll be reading some comments about this that I received on my social media. But I think the end result of this is something. The reason I wanted to do this episode is because right now I'm feeling, I think, a lot the same as maybe Beth was a month ago, and a lot of other foreigners are feeling this as well. We've been away from home for so long. Some of us haven't had the chance to go back and family, and this is something that's starting to weigh on me at the moment. It's like it's something that I was doing fine with before, but recently it's really just started becoming a real negative pull on my emotions and my mental state, let's put it that way. So it was an episode that I want to do because I feel like it's important that other foreigners in Germany know that they're not alone in this feeling. So we're going to be talking a bit about that feeling and what other people are feeling like, and we're going to talk about what it's actually like to make that trip back home, because I think that's something that's in a lot of our minds, is making that trip back home. So Beth, that's you. We're going to get to all of that. But first, I wanted to tell you about a guest appearance I made on a YouTube channel. Can you remember Jenna, Beth? She was on the podcast because she I think it was November that she was on the podcast, and she is originally from Canada, and she has a YouTube channel that's just hit 10,000 subscribers, and she invited me to come on, and I go on her YouTube channel and I talk about what it's like to live in a small village in Germany and whether I would recommend it to foreigners or not. So yeah, you need to go and listen to that. It was such a fun chat, and thanks so much to Jenna for inviting me. And we've got an audio clip from Jenna coming up later in this episode. But Beth, we'll get into the details of your actual trip to the USA later in our chat. But I wanted to first ask you, what was the mindset that led you to making that trip back to the United States of America?
Well, it's funny. I said a month ago, but to be honest, it was only 2.5 weeks ago. It was a two-week trip. But before that, there was like you said, a real weight, like a real heavy weight that you can't shake. No matter, I mean, I come from a place of, I guess, I don't even know how to say this. It's just such a place of privilege, right? To be able to have a beautiful home. I'm not in a small apartment that doesn't have a balcony. I have a yard. We have a beautiful house. I can go out to the fields. I don't have a lot of people around. So there is that level of freedom. So I think I want to start this by kind of acknowledging that privilege that I have, you know. Once in a while I may have to shut the door because we have two cats.
There's a cat. There's the cat.
You may see a tail go behind in the background.
But this is the same cat that, by the way, this thing that I forgot is Beth has been on the podcast before in an episode called Five Stages of Cultural Shock. And we discussed that and Beth's whole story. So go and listen to that episode as well. And that cat made some guest appearances in that episode as well.
Different cat. This is the old guy this is the American that just came in.
Okay. All right. I can't keep track of your cats, Beth.
What question? Okay. Well, the last, I think there was a feeling, I think everyone can relate to this, where once the pandemic started, or the lockdown started, and we were all sent home and it was all just very unknown, there really was a clear feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't know when I'm going to get back home again. Like, it's one thing to choose to live over here as an expat. It's another to know, like, this external force, which again, I know I'm not alone in this, knowing that it's deciding for you whether you see your family or not, which just changes completely the mindset, because Zoom has been wonderful. Like, I can't say enough about the silver linings. I have my health. My family has their health. I've been vaccinated. My in-laws have been back. There's all these like things that have come out of it. There's the slowing down. We've come together. Like, I think if I were to go on about that, you'd be like, yep, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But there is that underlying, there was, for me personally, an underlying current that I could not shake, a sadness. Like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to get it out. But I got to a point where I was like, this level of frustration, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
And I think I've heard somewhere they were talking about, I don't know if it was a podcast, probably. I listen to a lot of podcasts, yours in particular, on my walks.
Good little addition there. I like it.
But somebody said now, and I don't know how much of this I kind of get it, but they said now, as you're a foreigner or whatever, Ausländer, expat, whatever term you want to use or label, that now your neighbors can finally relate to you a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that you are not able to see your family.
Yeah.
That is a real thing. There is an ocean between myself and my family. I'm extremely close with my mom, my sister, my siblings. And it's just to have the control, like, you don't have the ability to hop on a plane and go, was just like.
And that is kind of, the thing is that you always have that kind of fail safe as a foreigner. You're living far away. It's a long trip to get back home. It's expensive, but you've always got that in the back of your mind. Like, anytime I can just go back home. And that was taken away from us, essentially, when the pandemic hit.
Yeah. And I don't expect any of my neighbors to understand that. I've had a lot of, empathy thrown my way, or people say, oh gosh, it must be hard. And no one truly knows what you're going through until they've been in your shoes. Yeah. But this whole cannot see your family. We were forbidden, right? Or at the beginning it was like, you could go, but you have to stay in a hotel for a few weeks. Like, it's always ever changing, right?
Yeah.
And then, you just I think there's a lockdown burnout that's happening, or at least for me.
Yes.
I don't know. I think that people can relate to that, where I said, on one hand, there was such a guilt for making the decision to go. But on the other hand, I thought, no, I'm looking out for myself and my family. And we do look, I did, don't get me wrong, life is good. Things are good. And saying, oh, when we go to America next time, what are we going to do? And trying to really keep a positive mindset. And what are we going to do the next time we're there, instead of dwelling on, oh, we haven't been there since January of 2020. But you do that for so long, and it's just, whew.
Yeah. I think I know where you were at, because this, as I said, this is also something that's been in my mind. I'm seriously considering going back to South Africa at the moment, because the COVID numbers are still okay there. I mean, we did introduce one of the more dangerous variants that's running around, the South African variant of COVID-19. So, national pride, I guess.
I found the map.
Yeah, finally, some recognition for South Africa. Not the kind of recognition we would like, but at the moment, coronavirus has been under control there up until now. And so, like, the thought does enter my mind, maybe I should go back somehow right now. The thing is, we were supposed to go back in 2020. So the plan was always, for the last few years, we generally go back to South Africa every 18 months. But this time we had a little baby girl born in 2019. And the idea was, when she gets to maybe about a year old, we would take her back to South Africa. And that was the end of 2020. That was supposed to be when it would happen. And then, of course, last year, everything happened. And in the beginning, it was kind of like, okay, we've got this situation. It seems like it's going to be here for a while, but maybe it's not as bad as we think. And it's definitely, we should stay at home, stay healthy. And it was easy at the beginning. It was like kind of no problem. It was even a bit of fun. We had good times. And, like you said, Beth, keeping in mind that we are talking about our very privileged situations. I haven't lost a job. No one in my family's lost a job. I know that there is that stuff out there as well. That's also happening to people. And of course, that's a whole different level of what I've been through. But I think this year, when things ticked up again in January and we realized we're going into a new wave and that we were going to be locked down again, just as we'd experienced this wonderful summer. The summer last year in Germany was fantastic because we could go on vacation, we could move around a bit. It started to look like we had the worst of it behind us, and Germany was the best in the world with dealing with the coronavirus. It was everyone wanted to be here, everyone wanted to be us. Things in the States at that time were really terrible or looked really terrible. There was a lot going on, and people were looking to Germany going, wow, they've really got their shit sorted out. And now it's the other way around. It's flipped. There are so many countries. South Africa's doing okay. United States is doing okay, or starting to do okay. I mean, there's places like Michigan that's flared up again, but in general, it's doing okay. The United Kingdom, which was doing so badly, is doing okay now. And that starts getting to you because then you start seeing these pictures of people returning to their normal life, people going to restaurants and bars. And I saw a news report today that the selfie culture is coming back because people are taking photographs of the first time that they're meeting up with friends in a bar again. I'm like, oh, I want that. And I think the other thing, and I apologize for talking so much, but like I said, this is something that's been bottled up inside me. And I think it's the same as other people are feeling. Is this just to look at the mess that the Germans made with the vaccination rollout and the things that have happened here that have led us to the situation where we're still going to be in this lockdown for a while. And they're talking about like increasing the lockdown measures and these Notbremse and I don't know what else. And all of this just kind of weighs on you. So for me, it's two things. It's that seeing the people going about their normal lives and kind of having this thought like, why can't that be us here in Germany? And the second thing is I haven't seen my family for, I think it's going on 3 years, maybe closer to 4 now. My father hasn't met my baby, his newest grandchild. And this is also like, how much longer is this going to go on? How much longer is it going to be before I know that I'm going to South Africa, that we can book a flight and tickets to go there? So yeah, it's just, I'm close to where you were. It's a level
of frustration. Sorry, it's just a level of frustration that none of us have ever known. And you've never having, the tools to be equipped to deal with it. And seeing a therapist, there's ways to try to cope with it. But like watching friends in Australia going to soccer matches, or, you're like, oh my, it's as if it doesn't even exist there. You're like, oh my God.
I know.
It's restaurants.
Yeah.
I think there's just a point where you're like, are we ever going to see that again? Like,
I know.
Ever? Yeah. I mean, that hope, you're trying to keep hope, because I like to think I'm the eternal optimist. Or keeping that hope alive.
Yeah. But
there was a point, even a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I was like, oh my God.
I can't anymore.
I'm done. And that's before anyone judges me for taking a trip. I said, until you've walked a mile in my shoes and known what that feeling is like.
Yeah.
When I was presented with the opportunity, I took it.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad I did it.
Yeah. So we're gonna get into what it's done to your mindset now. And I'm very curious to hear. Because I can imagine that it would have been a great relief, but we'll get into that. But there's some other, I asked some other foreigners living in Germany for their mindset, and they recorded some audio clips for me. So we're going to listen to that right now. The first one is actually a YouTube video, and I asked her for permission to play this clip. It's Antoinette Emily, and she is a New Zealander. She has also been on my podcast. And she's got a great YouTube channel. And in this clip, she just take a listen to the clip. We'll play it for you.
I have been getting so many questions lately asking, Antoinette, when are you going back to New Zealand? Hasn't it already been years since you visited? Antoinette, when is your mum coming to visit you? And she hasn't met your baby yet. Antoinette, it must be so hard. Is it hard for you seeing everybody living life as normal in New Zealand when in Germany you're still in lockdown and your kids can't even play with other kids right now? Yes, it is hard. It is really hard. When am I going to be going back to New Zealand? I have absolutely no idea. When am I going to be seeing my mum again? I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. And basically, I could be crying right now talking about this, but I think I've mentioned in other videos, I have had to block that part of my emotions off. Otherwise, it's just too hard. Okay, maybe I am going to start crying. Before the pandemic broke out, I was at the point where I was dying to get back to New Zealand, and we left it way too long. Normally we tried to go back sort of every few years for a really good holiday. But this time around we left it too long, and then this pandemic came and there was no way that we could visit New Zealand. My reality is that it is extremely difficult to bring my whole family over to New Zealand right now for many reasons. One of the reasons is money. It is extremely expensive right now to get tickets to New Zealand. I think the tickets have basically doubled. And then there's the managed isolation. When we arrive in New Zealand, we have to quarantine for 2 weeks, as I've talked about before. And I don't know the exact price of that, but it's going to be extremely expensive, especially for 5 of us, and we just cannot afford that right now. It's just not possible for us. Right now, life is basically back to normal in New Zealand. There are no cases of COVID, and if you do hear about a case, it's in managed isolation. It's like huge news.
Yeah, so that was Antoinette Emily talking about her feelings, and I think that was exactly it for me, what she said about they'd left their trip so long to go home already. I mean, we didn't know. You just kind of go on planning things as you would already. So we'd left our trip, just like Antoinette had, so long before going back, and then the pandemic hit, and that just means that instead of seeing our family every 18 months, it's just now going on for years, and that's like it for her. And New Zealand is even a more difficult trip for her to take. And like she said, you have to quarantine in a hotel, which costs money as well. And then that cuts into your vacation time that you're trying to see family. It's just, it's like you were saying earlier, Beth, the option of seeing your family is taken away from you. And that is a hard thing to deal with, right?
Yeah. When you sign up to be an expat or to move overseas, you always do it knowing that you have that as a fallback, that you can definitely catch a plane when you need to, or holidays or whatever. And I don't know if I was equipped or any of us equipped for what was coming. And of course, that's out on top of the stress of the disease itself, the virus.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of factors weighing on the mentality, a lot of layers weighing on the mentality of everyone, not just foreigners, obviously everybody. But foreigners do have specific kinds of things that are weighing on their mind. And like you said, it's the actual disease, it's the lockdown fatigue that we've just been going on. So now a lot of people have kids at home all the time, which is difficult because they have to work as well. And then you have this fact that you can't just go and see your family. So there's a lot of factors. The next clip comes from Jenna, who, as I mentioned at the top of the episode, also has a YouTube channel called Life in Germany. And this is what she had to say about her experiences.
I was actually last home about 2 years ago, and I can't believe I'm actually saying that out loud, because I would typically go home probably about 2 times a year. I would basically just find the cheapest flight out of here and go home whenever I really got that, feeling deep down in my stomach where I just needed to be home. I needed to be with my family. And of course, over the last couple of years, that's not really been an option. And you asked how I'm feeling right now as the lockdown wears on and as we're still not easily able to travel. For the first year, I thought we can do this, at some point it's going to end. And I don't know, at some point you just kind of lose hope. Like I don't know if it's going to last 2 months. I don't know if it's going to last 2 years. I don't know if it's going to last 20 years. I mean, of course, I think with all that's been said and done, at some point you really just have to listen to your gut. And at the moment, it's so nice. I have the opportunity to travel back home if I want to, but with the regulations and restrictions put in place, it is just simply too expensive. And you, at the moment, as a Canadian going back to Canada, you have to be in quarantine in a hotel for the first 3 nights, regardless of whether you test positive or negative. And that hotel fee alone is just simply not in my budget right now. It also really hurts me to say that, because it's not that I'm being cheap. It's just that, you don't want to have to pay this fee when then next week all restrictions are then open and I just wasted, 3,000 euros on a 3-night stay in a hotel where I couldn't even open the windows or see my family, and then had to go into a 14-day quarantine if I tested negative. If I tested positive, I would have to stay in the hotel longer, and then that would really be the end of my bank account. So it's hard to say that I can't go because I can't afford it, because what happens if things get worse? What happens if I'm actually not allowed to go home at all? And then I would have said, oh, you know what, for that 3,000, 6,000 euros, I should have just done it, because now it's not even possible. And no money in the world is ever going to make up for the fact that I'm not seeing my family. So I'm at this point in time right now where I don't know. I don't have the money to spend, but what happens if I'm not able to travel to Canada in the future? It's just, there's so many questions and everything is so unsure, and it really is an emotional roller coaster. I don't know how life would have been like before, had this happened before I had a child, but definitely having my son here also really, really saddens my heart to know that he misses his grandma so much. He misses our family so much, and I miss them so much. But the fact that it's not just me, but him as well, it's really tough. It really is tough. And you asked me, when do you think you'll see Canada again? I don't know. My hope was this July. I was going to go for the whole month, and just like go and spend as much time as I possibly could. But money, it all boils down to money, which is really, really sad, because I love my family so much and I want to be there for them, and I need them too.
So that was Jenna, and she, like, as I said, she's talking about a lot of the same things that we've been going through and we've been thinking. Yeah. And another former guest of the show, Fiona, also recorded this very heartfelt message.
I haven't seen my family since January 2020. Normally we'd visit twice a year, summer holidays and Christmas holidays. We've always considered ourselves pretty lucky that both my parents and my mother-in-law have generally visited a couple of times a year each. And in between that, various visits from family and friends. I think one year we had someone staying with us pretty much every day in December. The first cancelled trip last year was my parents not able to visit at Easter. My mum has been shielding the whole pandemic because she has lung problems. So we've been very aware of the sacrifices she has made to remain healthy, really. We decided not to make our usual summer trip, thinking that it was still too early to trust that the pandemic had subsided. It was a really difficult decision to make, knowing that many other people had made a different decision. But we didn't really have the possibility to quarantine in England, and we wanted to make sure that we weren't bringing the virus back to family. So we decided not to go. We booked tickets for Christmas in the hope that we would be able to make it back. Unfortunately, we had to cancel. We've decided not to make any more plans for now because it's heartbreaking every time we have to cancel them. My daughter was 8 the last time she saw family. She turns 10 in a couple of weeks. It's time she's never going to get back with family. They've missed that time simply by not being able to see her. I know how tough it is for her. She desperately needs to give her family hugs and just spend time in their company, just being with them. I guess there's light at the end of the tunnel. Both my parents are vaccinated now, and my mother-in-law and siblings have all had their first injection. A couple of months ago, that felt like a huge possibility, that they would at least be able to travel to us. Then the third wave hit Germany, so here we are in a holding pattern with no idea when we can make plans again. The thought often pops into my head to just pack up and move back to England. I miss everyone so much, but then we have considerations to make that aren't just about being able to hug our loved ones. It's why we moved here in the first place. Thank goodness we live in the time of video chats. At least we've been able to see each other. But I just really want to be in a room with them and just to actually hear those laughs in reality and just, as I said before, just spend time with my family.
And the last clip that we've got for you right now is Raphael, who was also, you've seen a pattern here, a previous guest on the show. He's originally from Brazil, and there it's I think Brazil is struggling as well with the coronavirus. And yeah, a lot of it's definitely not one of the places that's doing better than Germany, let's put it that way. But this is that Raphael's got a mom in Brazil who's living there, and he's also not seen her for a while. So this is him talking about his feelings.
There are two sides about the thought of not being able to fly back home. One side says, I don't want to be there, the pandemic is not controlled at all, and there is much risk involved by being there. But on the other hand, I miss my family and friends a lot. Last time I saw them was in June 2019, and since then, just by doing video calls and etc. As things are going there right now, I don't think I'll be visiting Brazil very soon. It's already hard to estimate when things will be normal again in Germany, where everything is kind of controlled, comparing to how things are in Brazil. I just hope that the vaccination there reaches my family as soon as possible, and with some kind of vaccination pass or plan, they will be allowed to travel to Germany sometime and visit me, and then we can all see each other.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. You're totally, you relate to everything, every single one of these.
Yeah, you do. And you feel, you just, they're reflecting exactly what you're feeling. And you realize that the reason I wanted to play these audio clips as well as to talk to you, Beth, is that people realize that this is a common theme at the moment for foreigners. We have this very specific feeling that we're having right now. And it's difficult. My heart breaks for these people and everyone that I hear with these stories. It's just really, really tough. But something that I noticed is that in the last time, there's been a bit of a change in mindset. It's a bit along the lines of that flip that's happened recently. So I asked this question on my social media, and I got a lot of feedback to this. And let me ask you first, Beth. Has the current situation in Germany made you consider moving back to the States permanently?
When I read that, I just scoffed at first. I was like, oh, no. There is that. I mean, there's just something about being in your home country, the sights, the sounds, the food, the being with my family, being with my mom, that we just got in our routine for the time I was there. And it's like, oh, that went by unbelievably fast, but no, I wouldn't move back there. I cannot believe that shootings are almost commonplace in the news.
Yeah.
It's shocking to me. So there's things like that I go, that's not okay. That should not be a subject in the news. My son doesn't have to learn how to do active shooter safety in his school. So there's the reasons that the reason we wanted to start a family in Germany are still the same reasons why I would stay here today. Yeah. It's a very safe and a great place to raise a family.
Yeah. You got to look at the bigger picture as well. I mean, if I look at South Africa, it's the same thing. They're handling the coronavirus okay for now. I think the vaccine rollout is also slow in South Africa, but in general, they're doing okay with the numbers. And but there's the other factors, like you say, are still there. The crime aspect in South Africa is still there. And the reasons, despite this one blemish on Germany's record with how they're dealing with coronavirus and have dealt with it up until now, in general, the decision for me is still, I wouldn't even consider it. It's just, but I've been here for a while. Like I've been here for 14 years. So I totally get why newer people would be thinking that like that.
Yeah. And just go straight. But it wouldn't even enter my mind. I don't want to sound like Americans running around with flak jackets on and like it's it's not to be dramatic or anything, but no, it wouldn't enter my mind in the fact of raising our son. I do want to be able to go back once or twice a year if possible.
Yeah,
to keep that culture aspect of it and that part of it up, but not to live there again.
Yeah. So I wanted to get a feeling of the zeitgeist because I was just getting a sense that there's a bit of this this looking across to people's home countries and them thinking maybe their home country is dealing with it better. So maybe the option was on for them to move back home. So I asked the question, as I said, on my social media, and it's a case of like a few months ago, as I said, the foreigners were so happy to be here. They were saying on social media, it's so great being in Germany, countries like handling this okay. But now with the new lockdowns and the vaccination rollout, and then Easter, I think, was the killer for me because they made that whole thing like we're going to have a hard lockdown over Easter. There's going to be a few extra public holidays. And then Merkel went, sorry, we're reversing that and it's not going to be like that. And any semblance of trust that I had in the government and their decision-making of this just evaporated in that 1 second. I was just like, well, what's going on now? What's actually happening? So to find out what the general feeling is, I asked the question, and here are some of the responses I got back about that question, if people would consider moving back to their home countries. Anna Schulze, also previously guest on the show. It's like, I think my listeners consist of previous guests. Anyway, previous guests or future guests. I do feel safe in Germany, Anna wrote, but I wish we were much more aggressive with the vaccine rollout. Yeah. Every week that goes by with the new variants are gaining more ground. Plus, my son's school still insists on in-person teaching 3 days a week. Now that we're in the third wave, it's just insane to keep doing this. I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. I kind of feel like the kids need to get back to some kind of normality, because how long are we going to be keeping them like this? They're just experiencing a different life, and soon this is going to become their norm. So I almost think it's good from that aspect to send them back to school. But of course, then you got the whole aspect of the pandemic and spreading, and it's such a difficult thing to know what to do there. Andrew Pugh wrote, no, I feel safe here in Germany. 79,000 dead here versus 150,000 in the UK. So Amy Holt wrote, hey, Amy. Also a previous guest. Andrew Pugh was not a previous guest on the show, by the way. Andrew, get in touch. Let's get you on the show. Let's get you on the show.
We're only in two categories.
Amy wrote, I thought Germany was going to kick ass with the vaccine, so I'm really surprised, but I still feel safe and good about it because the majority follow the rules, unlike in the US where half the population refuses to even wear masks. Did you see that, Beth? Did you see people refusing to wear masks?
Well, it's not a matter of refusing. When I was there, the state lifted the mask mandate.
Oh, right. Well, there
and
you
you're
go.
like, what? Like, it went from 0 to 60 for me, like having not been in a restaurant since October. And then the very first night, the second night we were there, we went to a restaurant where there wasn't spacing between the tables. They had the ceiling fan. The door closed, and I was like, I'm not an anxious person, but I was like, I mean, people did have masks on, and the fact that even the subject of masks is political is beyond me. It's that individualistic nature of the United States, of the Americans, really shone through, where I didn't have any one-on-one conversations with anyone. I didn't have any reaction to me wearing my mask. I just thought, well, we're going to just keep continuing what we do to be safe.
Yeah.
That's not even a question for me. So in the restaurant, it was mask on when we got up. And then, it's as I am. There's no way I would deviate from what I've been doing this entire time.
And I think the mask is like the smallest thing. Like people getting upset about wearing masks. I'm like, it's the smallest thing. Whatever you feel about it, it's literally it's no big deal. Like
that's the minimum.
It's the minimum. I understand vaccinations. I understand vaccinations. If people feel strongly about it, I can get that. But masks, I think we can deal with that.
I think we can handle that.
Yeah. Leanna Brown wrote quite a long post on Facebook. She wrote, we moved back here last summer after being back in the US for 4 years in between. When we first got here, it was like a whole new world. I couldn't believe how seriously it was being taken, but also with the summer last year, I couldn't believe how almost normal it felt with quite a few things being open. In the US, it was still a complete shit show, and nobody was taking it seriously. I will just say this. I'm getting extremely tired of lockdowns. Yes, Leanna. Me too. Me too. Mentally, it's getting extremely difficult. What's even more frustrating is seeing the US basically rewarded for doing so badly last year while we've done absolutely everything we were told to do here, and yet we are still in strict lockdowns. Yes. Yes, Leanna, it is. I wouldn't say that it means that I would want to move back to the US right now. It is just a frustrating situation, and I expected way more from the vaccine rollout here than what is happening. I think that was also one of the things that broke the camel's back, this vaccine rollout thing.
Yeah.
So, and another thing I noticed about Americans is that many US citizens are thinking of going back to get vaccinated in the States as well. Did you do that? You got vaccinated in the States?
Thanks to my sister who pushed it. There's a website called vaccinefinder.org.
Yeah.
And she just did a radius. I went and drove with my son there in the middle of our trip and just did a radius around, made an appointment at a Walmart, at a pharmacy.
And bang. So there were a few Instagram posts of people that mentioned this. So, for example, Wenzel House on Instagram, she answered the question, no, because my chances. So the question, of course, is, would you consider moving back to your home country? No, because my chances of getting killed by gun violence in the US are still worse. That's what you were saying earlier, Beth. Mm-hmm. And but I have considered a long trip back in order to get vaccinated because, of course, Germany has messed that up. Somebody named Zatadagli on Instagram.
Easy for you to
Yeah, it's like I've butchered that and I apologize. Considered booking vaccines there and moving in general because of COVID shifting priorities. So I assume that things have changed for their trip here since COVID started. So that maybe is adding to the. Of course, these things don't happen in isolation as well. These decisions to go back. There's always vaccination and something else and several things. So there was that. And Amy Holt, 11.
Amy!
She wrote, no, she's not considering moving back home, but I might be traveling back just to get the jab. So Amy's also considering it. I spoke to Nicole of the Expat Cast, and she also had some thoughts about just this topic. Here's Nicole.
The way the German government is handling the COVID vaccination process and the new rules this spring 2021, it's really crap, first off. But it's been very good, in my opinion, up until this point, for the most part. I have very few qualms with the way Germany has handled the pandemic until now. And I'm living in Germany on a visa. My actual passport is from the United States, where I actually think they've been handling the pandemic really poorly by and large this whole time. However, the current situation is much better over there than it is here. So despite being really critical of the US the last year, well, and before that for other reasons, but specifically about the pandemic over the last year, I could just ignore the fact that I was critical and just buy a ticket, go to the US, even just for a weekend, get the one-shot vaccination, and then, I don't know, I could stay longer if I wanted to and do things that you get to do now that you're vaccinated, or I could just come right back to Germany, and with that vaccination, I wouldn't then have to quarantine at all. And once things start opening in Germany, I would be able to do more and be treated like a person with a negative test, right? So that's a new rule coming out in Germany soon, that anyone who's vaccinated gets to be treated as a person who has a negative test. Once things start opening and they say you can go to the restaurant if you show a negative test, I would be able to do things like that without worrying about it, because I, in this theoretical situation, would have flown to the US and just gotten a vaccine there for free, although I'm not, paying into that system anymore. And I don't know, the whole thing is really kind of blowing my mind, especially the contrast in these two countries, the way they've handled things, and like the fact that they're handling them in the opposite ways now. And I just think overall this situation makes me keenly aware of my passport privilege, which of course plays into things like the visas I have and the travel I'm able to do even during normal times. But I think I don't really feel that, as with most privilege. You don't really feel it. You just think this is how life works. But this is one time that the reality of that passport privilege has really been visible. It's in my face, People from other countries living in Germany, or Germans living in Germany, don't have this other option, but I do. And it doesn't change my opinion on where I want to live in the long term, because the way the US is giving out vaccines quickly and for free without any questions asked, even if you don't have insurance, that's not how they do things normally. And I don't trust that they're actually going to change to this new way of healthcare, or if they will, it probably will take some time. And anyway, healthcare is not the only reason I live in Germany. So of course, at this point, it's been a year and a half since I've seen my family. I want to go home and visit them at some point soon anyway. We have a couple family events coming up that are really big, once in a lifetime type things. And I might go back for one of those. And the fact that part of that trip might involve dropping by a grocery store and getting a vaccine, just so casually and easily, versus if I waited in Germany, it could be another 5 or 6 months, who knows? It's just really mind-blowing.
Yeah. So thank you, Nicole, for that. And I think, it seems to be a general thought amongst Americans. So, yeah. Other people who were talking about their home countries, of course, America is one of the examples where America is doing well. But not everybody has that situation. Popular Cultural Cherry, who it is a podcast, a new podcast in the scene. He's in Germany. I guess I have a new rival. So Levine is the host of the Popular Cultural Cherry podcast, and he is from the Philippines. And here he is talking about how things are not necessarily doing so great in his home country.
Regarding the question, what do I feel about the rollout of the COVID vaccine in Germany? And as a foreigner in Germany, would I actually consider moving back home because of this situation that they have with the whole rollout thing? I guess, to be honest, it's a bit disappointing. But economically speaking, I personally don't really feel the effects. It might be because of the industry that I work in, which is in IT. But I guess overall, I feel kind of blessed to be in Germany. One side of me says that, it's a bit disappointing being in a very prosperous nation, but the rollout and the implementation of regulations aren't the best. But at the same time, I feel blessed to still have a job and to be here and to know that at the end of the day, the hospital can take you in, like at the moment at least. And, at the end of the day, because of how jobs are set up, how unemployment is set up, to some extent, you receive some benefits. And, compared to a lot of other countries around the world, obviously, we're not seeing that level of unemployment here. You don't see the level of, hospitals reaching their capacity.
Some other responses to that question, if people are thinking of moving back home. Yep, I don't trust the government here at all. That's House of Figs. Sounding Lustig. I don't know if you follow Sounding Lustig on Instagram. You really should. She is hilarious. She is hilarious.
Yeah.
No, but I'm extremely disappointed and more critical of the government every day. Alexandra, also previous guest on the show, both my parents and most friends back home are already fully vaccinated. She wrote, yes, really, we're moving in August. I think that their contract, she's a diplomat, so the contract ended and she's moving back in the end of August. It's not soon enough. Funny enough, though, she's from Romania originally, and I had a response from another Romanian, Madalina Dragolina, wrote, no, in comparison, Germany handles it better than Romania. Cost of living and scenery are better here. So it's also interesting to see how people are perceiving the situation. Liz Becker 79 wrote, no, my home country is South Africa. Yay! And I feel that they aren't doing a better job than Germany. And there again, I think the numbers are down, but like I said, I think that the vaccine rollout has not been very effective in South Africa. Elisa Jordan writes, no, and she's got a great blog. People should definitely check that out. No, but it does make me wonder what the hell happened to a German efficiency. Is this the final proof we needed to know that it's a myth? Yes, I think it is. I think it is, Elisa. Robert Virgil Shaw wrote, hell no, if being on a strict lockdown is the worst thing I have to deal with, I'll take it. Kutsia Monique, not my home country, but to another country, yes. So she would consider just moving. MSK 179 wrote, no, it's India. The infections are worse. Yeah, they're having some issues at the moment. Even with my privilege, it's unsafe. Their sad face. And there's a lot of hurt in that comment. Like when you read some of these comments, I'm reading them flippantly, but there's a lot of emotions that are there that you can kind of sense from reading some of these. Yeah, Guten Tag Sausage wrote, have considered moving back temporarily because I no longer have confidence in the government. The Adventures of Steffi wrote, definitely UK has handled the long term of COVID way better and life is getting back to some normality. Not being able to go back and forth easily has taken its toll on me and my mental health. And and then some people who were going back anyway and they're happy to go back. So yeah, it's sort of a very mixed bag of responses, but people are generally feeling the same way. Lockdown fatigue, missing family, and I agree with Germany.
What I've heard is that's the second pandemic is going to be the mental health fallout from all of this. And that's huge. The Belastung, the weight of it, I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how we cope with this. But and I even think of the kids, like what are their mindsets going to be? We had a friend of ours come around. This was a few weeks ago, back when we could hang out with one family. I think you can still hang out with one family where we are. I don't know. Things are changing every day. I don't have a frigging clue. So we had another kid. He didn't come in. It was just at the door. And then we offered him the umbrella because it had started to rain and they were headed off. And he said, no, I can't take the umbrella. It might have the virus. And my heart just broke. Like he's 5 years old. And for this to be such a big topic in their minds, like I'm just like, it's raining, take the umbrella. But my heart was broken.
I don't want to go there mentally, like what that fallout will be or the outcome will be.
Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna have some effect. And they're experiencing profoundly. And I think the thing with kids of my daughter's age, 5 years old, is that they don't always say what they're feeling. I'm not always aware of it until she says something that makes you realize, wow, is that your opinion of it, or that's your thought of it? And it's sad. It's heartbreaking. So yeah, I think we've got a lot of stuff coming to us in the next few years. The economy has to be rebuilt, but also people's mental states and our kids, their mindsets.
For sure.
Ooh, it's getting a little serious here, Beth. So tell me about your trip. How difficult was it to plan your trip? Did you have to jump through hoops? Did you have to get tests and stuff?
So it was your podcast interview with Nina from your other podcast. Shameless plug for your other one.
Oh, yeah.
Where she was discussing returning from her vacation. And it's like these little seeds have been planted along the way. And that was one of them, like hearing her process or what she did when she returned. I thought, oh, like actually hearing that somebody left the country on an airplane. You're like, oh, like that hadn't even, I had discussed it with my husband in January, and I talked to my friend in Chicago, like, oh, hey, I'd be flying in Chicago. And I mentioned that maybe back in February, but then hearing about the next phase and the next lockdown and Easter, and because Easter at that point seemed so far away, and then Easter was coming up, and you're like, oh, we're looking at a 2-week school break with a 7-year-old with nothing open and entertaining him for 2 weeks. And again, pretty privileged that my husband works for an airline, so we can get flight benefits. It's not free. We still have to pay to fly. Leading up to it was a Wednesday morning, jokingly to my husband, ha, 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 maybe we should just go to the U.S. for the Easter break. And he goes, yeah, why don't you? And I was like, huh. He was like, ding, ding. Well, we have Easter dinner at your parents', like I was still very, no. And then I was like, oh, but if we do it Friday, on Good Friday, then we'd have, just trying to work it out. He's like, well, I'll look into the way the loads and the factors, see if it's open enough. And it's 50% open, the aircraft. So I go, yeah, oh, this is really happening. And then your test has to be within 48 hours before flying. And our test center here is not on those days or whatever. So now it means going to the airport. And then you buy your test based on how many hours you need it.
Okay.
So go to the airport only if you're flying within a short amount of time and pay 120 euros each.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we got the old swab in the mouth, and it was efficient, but you have to be registered online first. You have to pick your level of service as far as how many hours you needed within. We got the results that was like 2 p.m. We got it by 7 p.m.
Okay.
So that was good because we were flying the next day. So that was Thursday. Friday morning, we're on a plane. Check-in was interesting because this is the first time I've ever been asked by a customs agent if I'm allowed to take my son out of the country.
Right.
And I thought, what? I can call my husband. He's on his way to the parking garage.
Yeah.
So no, just put him on the phone. So my husband was like, the Bundespolizei is calling you. What is it all about? What have you done? I didn't do anything. Oh, yeah, she has my permission to take him. I'm like, oh, my God. So, no, but as far as the flight goes, the mask, you have to wear one of the two medizinische masks. It's such a tight seal that even like 10 hours later, I could still feel like a phantom line on my face.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure.
When we landed, I meant driving a few hours in the car. And so it was just adrenaline. I mean, I think I was just running on pure joy and adrenaline once we got there, but that's getting to the States.
Yeah. And what was it like seeing family? Did it instantly lift your spirits?
It was, and I said it, I go, it's like a hole in my heart closed. Yeah. This weight, it's as if you're carrying around just a big old weight on your shoulders. And I was gone. Yeah. That feeling of being lighter. I felt lighter. I felt like my energy level just instantly increased. Yeah. I knew we didn't have COVID. We weren't around a bunch of family in the beginning. It was my mom, but I gave her the biggest hug, and because here I am sitting at the table eating with my mom, and she's right there, and it was unbelievable.
So surreal. Yeah,
I could cry thinking about it. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, because I said to my son, I go, do you remember what I said? I said back in like February, a few months ago, when one of those, like, you just have those boiling points, right? Or I did, at least. where the frustration really hit its head on like a Saturday evening. And I was like, I want to go to, now it sounds like a big whiny baby almost. I'm going to admit it to you all, but I was like, I just want to sit with my mom at a table, eating in a restaurant. Like, those two things. And this is, again, taking out all the other stuff. But I was like, my level of frustration was that I'm like, I just want to be in her presence.
Yeah.
And it was so great. It was the best. And then that time, it was just so fast because I spent probably the least amount of time I ever have on my phone. I just wanted to be so present and there. And I had my working list of food and places I want to go. It was a little bit odd to go to a restaurant, and like I mentioned before, but just to step into a restaurant, I'm like, oh, you can actually sit in here, like not take it out, take out.
Yeah.
So the seeing family was by far the highlight. Yeah. And I asked my son what, you think a 7-year-old might say going to Target or something else was his highlight, but no, it was seeing family.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it's important. It's important for Beth's crying. She's wiping her eyes. It's important for the children as well, like we mentioned earlier on. But it's also for the grandparents. They really, really need to see their grandchildren. I mean, yes, their daughters and sons as well. Like but it's something special to. Sure. That's breaking my heart as well. Like, when are my kids going to see their grandparents again? Because like my daughter is internalized, and she also says things like, when Granny comes to visit, or when we see Granddad again, and it's just like my heart breaks because they're noticing it now. She's really noticing that she hasn't seen these people for such a long time, and I just hope we can give it to them. So I think it's a wonderful thing that you were able to do to get back to the States. And
I think I was very hesitant on even telling anyone.
Yeah,
because there's part of me that's like, you don't want to go around and be like, hey, but I'm not. No, this is my thing, and it's whether it's selfish or whatever. There's that kind of internal dialogue going: is this the right thing to do? Is it safe? I thought we're going to take the exact same precautions that we do in Germany.
Yeah,
and it's the risk I'm willing to take. I didn't want to put my son in harm, but there wasn't a whole lot of weighing that out. It was just sort of reacting and saying, we're doing it. Okay, we're doing this. All right.
Yeah.
Wow, this is happening.
And like you said, like there will be people who criticize this. There definitely will be. There were people who criticized. You mentioned Nina's story about going on vacation. That was, by the way, on the Die Deutsche und der Ausländer podcast, the German podcast. I'm just going to get that plug in there. But Nina was also saying that she went on vacation, and we got some feedback on YouTube as well of people who did not approve because it's a pandemic and stuff. So yes, I get that. But also what you don't get is that Germans had some time in between where they could see their parents. They can see their parents now with the test result. If you get a Schnell test or a PCR test, you can go see your parents and have your kids see your grandparents. You've got a one family rule of meeting. 2 households can meet together, and that you can see your brother and sister if they live somewhere nearby or in Germany. You can see that. You don't understand what it's like if you cannot see family. This is not something you're doing. Okay, Nina's was just she wanted to go on vacation, but this is something really, really that's core to you, is seeing your family, especially if you haven't seen them. If anyone wants to criticize this, by the way, what Beth is saying, just picture not seeing your family for 2 years. Or even a year. Just picture not seeing your family for a year. Picture your kids not seeing their grandparents for a year, and see how you deal with that. Come back to us, Beth. She's still getting over. She's like drying her eyes and sniffing
it's
over
like
there.
My son was 5 the last time he saw my family, and now he was up to my mom's shoulder almost. He's now 7. Like a whole year is gone.
Yeah.
I don't want to cry on YouTube.
She just want to cry on YouTube. It's so cliche, Beth. It's so everyone does it. Come on.
It's not pretty, but runs out of my.
We're gonna have to turn the video off here soon.
I don't have any. No.
But what about leaving again? What was your thought there? Was it just was it easier
I just
to do?
Crying.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get you back there.
I tried to make it quick, pulling off a Band-Aid quickly, but even I had a trip in between to see my sister, like I mentioned, and I'm just saying goodbye to my mom in a parking lot because we quickly went to get some shoes for my son or something, and then got on the road from there. And I said goodbye to her, and I thought, I'm going to see her in 4 days. But I was like, and it was already, my mind was already playing ahead to when we had to leave. And what we did, because of the standby, I know that it's a privilege and that we'd be able to do it again. Can't do it so often with the amount of testing costs. No more last minute, I will pre-plan.
Yeah.
The last minute is what really is the killer when it comes to the testing and all that. But well, it is. I guess the trip back, you go to a wall, like in our case, you type in the 5 allowed tests. So Germany allows you only these 5 tests. And then the ones that you need within a 48-hour period are, what's listed. But then when you type it in to what's around, like in our case, there's like the drugstores like CVS, Walgreens, all of these. So I typed in the test that I need, and it only gave me the PCR, which is one where they send off to a lab.
Yeah.
And okay, here's your date and time. There's the next day. Okay, I've got to get it on a Tuesday because our flight's on Thursday. Is that right? No. We were originally flying Wednesday. Yes. Okay. This is why I got pushed back a day. So went to get it on that Tuesday for a Wednesday flight, I believe. It was only last week and I'm forgetting. But you're not allowed to leave your car. You have to get it through the window at the drive-through. She hands you everything and she goes, go ahead.
Oh, you got to do it.
Put it up your nose 5 times each, and I'll put it up your son's nose. And I think he'll be in therapy for the next, 20 years. He's like, Mo, you shoved it up over here. I was like trying to do it the 5 times as fast. And I was like, oh my gosh. I go, well, I don't think it was so bad, but he was like, ah. So I'm like, oh, he's scarred for life. But then I gave it to her through the thing. And I said, so is that within 24 hours, 48? Because our flight's in 48 hours. Oh, it's anywhere from 24, 48, or 72.
I know.
And I go,
that's going to be a problem.
So it's a Teufelskreis. You're just stuck in a vicious circle.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, okay. Well, sure enough, it hadn't come back in the time I knew it. So I'd already texted my husband. I'm like, can you please put us on the flight on Thursday instead? And thank goodness he did, because we didn't get the results till way late at night.
Wow.
So that wouldn't have worked. But then you do the digitales Einreisemeldung. So then you have to do this digital registration before going into Germany. So I did that before. So there's just all this, your mind is just, you can't miss any of these steps or you are not going to get back into Germany. So then we get to O'Hare and we missed Terminal 1. We got to now walk with a 7-year-old in our bags. We get to the end, get to the Lufthansa counter, and she says, you are landing 2 hours after this test expires.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
What? You can go downstairs to the Hilton and get tested again.
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, yeah, but the flight's leaving in 3 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fine. $150 each. 130, whatever, 100 something. My results came in 40 minutes before boarding, and my son's came in 15 minutes before boarding.
My goodness.
But at that point, thank goodness, thank you for free airport Wi-Fi, because I was using just airport mode, my phone.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a little trickle down my eye when she said you have to get retested again. I was like, no.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can only imagine.
Then you go so I asked the cleaning lady in Spanish, where's the Hilton Hotel? And then you get to the hotel. No, we are not the testing site. It's across the street.
Oh, no.
Of course it is. I looked at the guy and I go, of course it is. So we drag our bags and we get across the street. And then it's just this long line of confused people, angry.
Oh my God.
And I said, the lady, you have one of the worst jobs, and thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because everybody's in the same boat. We're all like,
frazzled.
Leaving.
Yeah.
Totally frazzled. And then it's this whole process again to register it online and your credit card and blah, 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 blah. And the guy behind me was throwing all these F-bombs out. And I just looked at him. I go, hey, dude, enough with the F-bombs. I'm like, my son is here. And he's like, oh, sorry. And he's on my flight. I see him again on the flight. He's like, sorry. I got it. I go, we're all stressed because the stress level is just.
Yeah, just shoot up through the roof. My God.
And then I flight home with a stressed out passenger who walked in circles for the majority of the 7.5 hours.
Oh, that's gonna
chanting, taking his shoes off, creating a big stressful event for everyone. But landed safe and sound. Germany sent me an email within 5 minutes of touchdown, telling me the rules from my Kreis. So the email came directly from them because of the digital registration,
Wow.
telling me to go straight home. Don't talk to anybody. Don't, nobody can come in my home for the next 5 days.
Yeah.
And we'll get tested tomorrow. And then,
So you're still in quarantine for now.
Yeah. So we will have a total of 4 tests in 2 weeks by the time this is all said and done. And I've been vaccinated. So that the vaccination means nothing in that sense.
Yeah, it's a small price to pay, I guess, for seeing your family, because it was a
absolutely. I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
none of it makes it. How much money I drop for testing or all that doesn't make any difference.
Yeah,
and knowing that you're on the plane and everyone's been tested, you're like, it's a safe. Yeah.
Yeah, and how are your feelings now that you're back? Like you've done this, you had that uplifting experience. You were able to see your parents, your mom, and like you said, that was a weight off your shoulders. Holding your heart closed up. And now, how do you feel now that you're back? Looking at where you are, do you feel rejuvenated and you can handle it again, or are you still feeling like?
Oh, I'm so tired from jet lag. That's how to feel rejuvenated. But
it's great when you don't know what's the jet lag or what's your emotional state. I love that phase.
You're like, I don't know how much is the sadness or I've chatted with my mom every day since, and inquiring about, hey, did you drop that clothes? Drop off the clothes. We left a lot of clothes for Goodwill, or just kind of chatting as if we're still there. The energy's still there as if we're there. It's been nice in that sense to kind of have that talk with my sister, and then our family Zoom call and getting to talk about our flight home and having that energy level is my energy level is definitely up. I feel rejuvenated in that sense. But the jet lag is real. I haven't had this experience. It's a small price again for having that feeling, but. In the sense of being locked down or this quarantine for 5 days, when you're so tired, it doesn't really, we've just kind of been chilling at home. And it's okay. And we are lucky to have a yard, and we can go on our back door and be in the yard or out the front door and get some fresh air. Yeah.
Well, it is very interesting to hear your story, Beth, because I think, like we said earlier on, a lot of people who would not have considered trips back home for the first part of this pandemic are now in this place. I definitely am. It's not something I would have considered before, but I am definitely at the point, especially hearing stories like yours where you think, I could do that. I could put up with that inconvenience and the stress because I get to introduce my dad to my little daughter that he hasn't met before, and I can catch up with my brother, who's one of my favorite people in the world. It's just like, I want to do that now. That's something that I'm ready to do that, and I'm willing to do that. But then there's so many factors that come into play, like things are changing on a daily basis, especially in Germany right now. So you don't know, are they going to close the borders off suddenly? Is that something that could happen? Or, because what happens if I go to South Africa and then they close up, somebody closes up the borders, I can't leave South Africa or I can't get into Germany. Then what? So it's so.
I think it's just that you do. I think it's the risk that you're like, you're either going to do it or you're not. And that's kind of how I was like, we're just going to do this. And I'm like, we're both have our passports. We do have that passport privilege, like Nicole talked about.
Yeah.
Being able to, my husband couldn't go with us. He could have, but then that whole 5 day afterward, like he just couldn't swing it with his work. But so that was sad that he wasn't with us. But in our sense, I'm so glad we did it. It worked out well. And I reckon if anybody has the opportunity and can say, okay, in May or 30 days from now, in June, whether it's just yourself or whether it's with one family member or something, to do it. I know some families are bigger. I think the one guest said she had 5 in her family. It's not doable, and that's a long trip. But man, it was so worth it. Yeah,
and weigh up. I think you also need to weigh up the facts. You need to do your research, because like not every country is the United States that is doing okay for now, and you need to obviously consider all the factors. But if you can manage it, it's definitely,
it's a lot to. There's a lot of extra, like then that's like I used to work for the airline, so I'm used to that whole last minute getting on a plane. That's kind of the excitement that I think is when you're a traveler. That was also missing for the last year, and that's just wah again.
But it is something that people are missing, that travel as well. It's also a big thing. Yeah,
that also put a boost. Like to get on an airplane again was like so exciting. Just even though there was a mask, it's totally doable if you can swing it, if you can do it. Ticket prices. I mean, I don't work for the airline anymore, but the fact that the plane was so wide open, they really do make it. They did a very good job with cleanliness and keeping space between everybody, and no one's gathering. And I felt completely safe the entire time. And we you follow the rules.
Yeah, I think it was so cool to hear about your story. And I think the biggest thing, as I said at the beginning, is that if you're out there and you're thinking these things and feeling these things, like Beth was, like I am, like all the people that we've spoken about today, we're definitely feeling this. So you're not alone with these feelings. We don't know how long this is going to go. Everyone's hoping that it's not going to be that much longer. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's going to be much longer. I don't know. But whatever that's doing to your emotional state, whatever it's doing to the way that you're dealing with life, you're not alone. That's all I can say. And if you want to talk about it, you can send me an email, info@thegermanexperience.de. I do answer emails. I usually take about 2 or 3 weeks before I answer them, but I do answer them. And you can also get hold of Beth, and I've waited the whole episode to say this, on the gram.
Who talks like that?
You do, Beth.
So old-fashioned, Sean.
You can get. What is your handle on the old the gram?
Oh, but can I just make one point?
You can.
Just because I have to. Do you know this? I think I had posted on Facebook about this.
We spoke about this. Yeah,
We did.
if you do this sign, and the sign that I'm doing is you kind of like make a fist with your hand. You have your elbow at a 90 degree, and you pump your fist down like that, as if you're pulling on a truck horn. Right?
They have like air horn, and it makes us fat. This is my childhood, right? So I'm trying to introduce my son. I thought, well, here's my opportunity on our trip to see my sister. We're gonna
just some context, by the way, just before, because this might just be an American thing. I don't know, but apparently in America, when you see a truck, and like especially for kids, they do that sign, that gesture, like pulling on your air horn, and then the trucker blows his horn, and then the kids love it. And Beth, apparently.
4.5 hours, only 4 truckers did it. One was overly exuberant. Like, he was so excited that I thought that just makes up for all the other truckers. And I thought, well, I didn't have anybody in my passenger front side, but my son got to experience that. And he said that was the coolest thing. Of course, the tablet or whatever. I got him off the tablet. And I thought, right there, like these kind of memories that we're making are fantastic. And I don't know why it made me think of that, because I'm really tired, but that was just this added little like bonus thing to our trip.
There you
and the fact that we made memories with my family and all that, totally worth it. And I hope there aren't any haters out there, but again, I know sorry, but I did it for my mental health. It was not easy.
Yeah, I think you did. I think you did a lot of good for a lot of people. Your mom, your kid, you. So I think in the course of weighing up that it's not so bad where you were in the United States. Flights are allowed. It's not, nothing you were doing was illegal. I think that it is fine. And anyone has to say differently, they can come and speak to me.
Info at
thegermanyexperience.de. Send me your hate.
All hate, send to Sean if you want to get in touch with me on the old gram.
Yeah.
It's Beth in Germany.
Yes, it is. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Thank you so much, Beth, for taking the time. And
Thanks,
it's always wonderful to speak to you.
Same here.